Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to untangle a really messy real-world car buying dilemma. If you've ever shopped for a used car online, you already know the landscape can feel a bit like the Wild West. So we're going to dig into official DMV sources to find out what actually happens when a vehicle's title just, well, skips an owner. We're looking at a very specific, incredibly risky situation that catches literally thousands of buyers off guard every single year. Let's get right into it.
Section 1. The Dilemma. A Reddit mystery.
Am I being scammed, or is this completely legal? That is the exact question a prospective buyer recently posed to the DMV and Denver communities on Reddit. They just run into a super suspicious setup for a used car transaction. And look, we all know that when a deal feels off, it usually is. But figuring out exactly why it's off, well, that requires a bit of digging.
So here's the exact situation our buyer is facing. They're caught right in the middle between Ralph, who's currently selling the car in Oregon but never actually registered it, and Brian, the original owner back in Colorado whose name is still officially printed on the title. Ralph is holding a piece of paper signed by Brian, right? But Ralph's name, it is nowhere to be found on that official document.
Section 2. What is title jumping? The ABC transfer.
What Ralph is doing actually has a name. It's called title jumping. It's a completely illegal practice, often referred to as an ABC transfer. So think of it like this. Ralph, who is person B in our scenario, buys the car from Brian, person A. But instead of marching down to the DMV, registering the car, and paying his required sales tax, Ralph just holds on to what's called an open title. He then turns around and tries to sell it to our buyer, person C, handing over a title that makes it look like the car magically went straight from Brian to the new buyer. Basically, Ralph is completely bypassing the system just to save himself some cash.
Section 3. Scam or just shady. Internet versus reality. Now, Ralph claims this whole thing is a total non-issue. And honestly, some Reddit commenters casually shrugged it off too. One user noted they've actually done an ABC transfer without facing any consequences, though even they admitted it gives you an unsettling feeling. And yeah, it's true that in some rural areas or casual private sales, people do sometimes pass cars around without updating the paperwork right away.
But man, the tone quickly shifted. Other users started pointing out the severe, real-world risks involved for the buyer. We're not just talking about bending some silly bureaucratic rule here. We are talking about exposing yourself to massive liabilities. Think about it. If Ralph's name isn't on that title, he literally doesn't legally own the car he's trying to sell you. And I think this one brilliantly illustrates the ultimate consensus from the community. One user just said, run. Simple as that. The core problem here is the asymmetry of risk. The buyer, you, is being asked to shoulder all of the legal and financial risk. What if the car was stolen? What if there are massive back taxes owed? Meanwhile, our guy Ralph gets all the benefit of a tax-free cash sale and just walks away clean. No way.
Section 4. Official Colorado DMV rules. The letter of the law.
We can't just rely on internet opinions, right? So let's look at the actual strict rules from the Colorado Department of Revenue. What's truly staggering here is how clearly the law defines the boundary between a casual sale and a felony. The DMV explicitly states you cannot skip title, period. Ownership has to legally pass through every single owner. If Ralph bought it, Ralph absolutely must title it. Only then can Ralph sell it. Bypassing owner B entirely completely breaks that legal chain of custody. Furthermore, to pull off a legal title transfer in Colorado, the buyer and the actual seller have to provide some very strict documentation to the DMV. And according to guidelines, this really should happen within 36 hours of the transaction. You're going to need a properly endorsed title with signatures from the actual buyer and seller, an accurate odometer disclosure, and crucially, this is a big one, a secure and verifiable ID, often called an SVID, that perfectly matches the seller's name on the title, plus things like a bill of sale, proof of insurance, and maybe an emissions test.
So here is the real kicker, found right there on the Colorado DMV application for title, Form DR 2395. When you sign these documents, you are signing under penalty of perjury in the second degree. If you forge Brian's signature, or if you pretend you bought the car directly from Brian when you actually just handed a stack of cash to Ralph, you are straight up lying on a government document. This isn't just some clever loophole to avoid taxes. It is literally perjury.
Section 5. Fixing a jumped title. The bonding process.
Now, what happens if you already bought the car and you're stuck with a jumped title where you can't even reach the original owner? Welcome to an absolute logistical nightmare.
You have to initiate what's officially known as the bonding for title protocol. First up, you need a certified VIN inspection. Then you've got to submit a formal title record search. If the state actually finds previous owners, you have to send them certified mail begging them to claim the car. If they don't respond, you then have to buy a surety bond, which is basically a pricey, high-risk guarantee from an insurance company for twice the vehicle's appraised value. Only after jumping through all of those expensive, time-consuming hoops can you even apply for the title. It's incredibly tedious.
Section 6. How to protect yourself. Avoiding the trap. You definitely do not want to go through that bonding process. So how do you protect yourself before handing over your hard-earned money? The absolute simplest, most impenetrable defense you have as a buyer is checking ID. Ask to see the seller's driver's license, their secure and verifiable ID, and make sure it matches the name printed on the front of that title exactly. If their name is Ralph, but the title says Brian, stop the transaction right then and there.
Aside from the ID check, you need to watch out for a few massive red flags. If the seller's name isn't anywhere on the document, strike one. If you see an open title, meaning the owner signed it but left the buyer field completely blank, you are almost certainly dealing with a title jumper. And definitely be wary of that classic excuse. Oh, I'm just selling it for a friend. Nope. Unless they have a notarized official power of attorney, they have zero legal right to sell you that vehicle. Don't fall for it. I'm going to leave you with this final thought. Is saving a few bucks on taxes or getting a slightly cheaper car really worth the risk of being stuck with an unrecoverable theft title or worse, a fraud charge? Is buying a car from someone who doesn't legally own it worth the legal and financial nightmare? The answer is absolutely not. Always verify the paperwork, check the ID, and remember, never be afraid to just walk away. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and stay safe out there.